Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the latest shaking for Red Raider hoops, and we're talking about a full swap up front for Zach Kitley's offense. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Always appreciate being your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by HelloFresh. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/college60 and use that code college60 at HelloFresh.com for 60% off plus free shipping. That's college60 at HelloFresh.com. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Great to be back with you, Chris. Kicking off another week, and we'll spend a little bit of time, of course, looking ahead, but also as we begin the episode, something that's forcing us to look back a little bit. We did not get to this on Friday, but I'm sure plenty of Texas Tech fans out there have been processing some of the latest news to emerge from the Texas Tech men's basketball program. That specifically, I guess, on a player front, we did have official announcements of a couple of assistants being hired, two names we did talk about last week that were with Coach McCaslin at North Texas. But otherwise, Davion Harmon makes some intentions known and obviously was a big part of what you were doing a season ago. Really unique player. I enjoyed having Davion in Lubbock, but sounds like I guess that time is coming to an end.
Yeah, you know, that I don't know if it was Thursday night or Friday morning, but yeah, that announcement comes out that Davion Harmon is going to pursue a pro career. It doesn't surprise me at all. I think he's been in college for many, many years. He's been at various institutions, and I wasn't sure, you know, where he fit into the mix here under Coach McCaslin. And I'm not, you know, he was a grad transfer, so I think the way that technically works is Texas Tech would have to say, we're going to renew your scholarship. And so I don't know if that was his choice, if it was Tech's choice or whatever, but it just sounds like Davion will go play basketball elsewhere at some point. And when he was good, he was really good. I think, you know, he plays hard. I think he's emotional. I think I think it's fair to say maybe sometimes he dribbles too much. But yeah, he was a big reason why you played really good basketball in the month of February when you kind of went on your hot streak, if you will, and won some of those games in a row. But, you know, and now this becomes about – so I don't think – so Harmon is gone. Fardaws is committed to Cal. KJ Allen is in the portal. He's kind of narrowed his list to some mid-major types that he's going to choose from. Louisiana Tech, Portland State. There's some different ones. And so you're starting to get some clarity on who for sure won't be back and maybe how many spots that you do have back. And so it really becomes, too, Calvin, about who do we think that they want to keep? You know, who do we think that they would like to still have here? And I think that list is something along the lines of Pop Isaacs, Lamar Washington, Robert Jennings, Daniel Bacho, Kyron Lindsey, Jalen Tyson, Elijah Fisher, maybe, you know, and past that, and even then, I'm not saying that I could say for certain on that, but that's you're starting to read the tea leaves there. But
that's actually kind of a bigger list than I expected.
I'm not certain that they could keep all those guys because again, it has to be the kid's choice as well. Because Bacho's in the portal. I think Elijah Fisher is in the portal, so they can be contacted. And I know Bacho's being sought after by multiple Power 5 schools. I don't know about Fisher's situation just yet. But, Pop Isaacs would be sought after. I think Tyson would be sought after. So, again, but here's the thing. Here's where a lot of this is going to come down to, in my opinion. A lot of this is going to come down to, Are you here because you want to play at Tech and for Coach McCaslin in Lubbock in front of these fans? Or are you here because you made money last year and depending on how much you made, you're looking for more or you're looking for that before you will kind of say, this is what I want to do? And I have no problem if a player, if that's the way they want to operate. Look, Fardal Zamak and his people, they were unabashedly apologetic for, hey, man, we're trying to maximize our value here. I think he got, rumor has it, he got like $400,000 to go to Cal. And so they're in it to try to maximize the value. This is the landscape right now. But I think if you're Coach McCaslin, you're trying to look at this thing and put it together on your terms. You want guys that want to be here, that want to play defense, that want to, play in front of these fans and want to be at Texas Tech. And it's not necessarily about, how much can we afford to pay you? I don't think that the grant is in any way anti-NIL. Okay, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But I think that everybody involved here feels the need to kind of even it out a bit compared to what it was last year and how they kind of operated with it. And that's parties that were involved with it. That's the administration at Texas Tech. That's the coaching staff at Texas Tech. I think feel all pretty strongly about that, similar to how football is rolling. That may be not doable depending on what you're trying to get done, but I think that's kind of the goal here. So that there's some of all these factors that play into who comes back, who doesn't, and I think schematic fit as well. What's your skill set? Can you do what we want to do? Would it be the best fit for you basketball wise to stay here? But this one's going to be it's going to be interesting to kind of follow, because I think this week there'll be a lot of movement. This week, one way or the other, guys saying, "Hey, I'm staying here. This is what I want to do," or you know what? It's been about a week since the announcement. I'm getting to the portal. This isn't for me. So I think we could see a lot of movement potentially this week.
I got to be honest with with my list or what I expect or anticipate to make up the list of returners, guys we've seen. And I guess I'll just leave Kyron Lindsey kind of out of this conversation because I don't really know what to make of him as a Tech basketball player. We hadn't seen him as a Tech basketball player, but I want him here just given what he's done so far in his basketball career. But either way, I don't know, Chris. I kind of felt like there was some vibe in the air last week, or maybe since Coach McCaslin's introductory press conference kind of gotten some wheels turning. I felt like maybe I should brace for very few to be sought after by the program to return. I think there are some obvious names when you talk about the one you led off with there in Pop Isaacs. To me, I'm more Bacho over Jennings at this point in time, but that's only because I think we've seen more from Bacho. Jennings is still just 99% potential. Bacho is about 55% potential, I guess. It's not like he's broken through, but we've seen some things that he's capable of. But yeah, when you talk about Isaacs, Washington, Tyson, these are guys that I really would like to be able to retain. But I don't know what is going through the mind of Coach McCaslin. And it's so funny to me to just sit here and observe some of what's happening now with some time spent in the era of name, image, and likeness rights, because it's almost like we're at the precipice of some outcry from like student athletes saying, well, this is unfair. We need this. We need that. We got to spread it around more. And I don't know how many were out there saying this years back, but I was one of them. You better be freaking careful what you wish for when you're talking about like unionizing and collective bargaining. And now we want a free market because we want to capitalize on this. Arian Foster was starving. People are making slave labor comparisons prior to this. Okay, so we listened to you. And now you've got this realm to kind of exist in. But you want fairness. You want to kind of spread it around. And these are just abstract thoughts. I know there's not like a player in the news saying, boy, I'm being railroaded here. We got to spread it around. But like I do, some of those feelings will begin to pop up. And I'm sure you knew it when the push was on toward this, that some of those things would pop up. Again, be very careful what you wish for. Women's rowing. If you'd like things more equitable within your athletics department, that means your program will not exist. You make no money. So be very careful what you wish for. And it's just, to me, so quickly that we've gotten to this point now, what, like 2 years into it, I guess, or a year and a half into it or so. They were already like, all right, well, some of these guys, we're going to have to make this a little more even. And I feel like basketball, I don't know what your take is on this, but the basketball thing, I almost feel like maybe fortunately or unfortunately is going to be a monster unto itself.
Yep.
Because so many things could happen with so fewer individuals as far as changing the trajectory of a program. And it's like, if there's that one guy out there and he wants $600,000 and none of you guys are over 40 or whatever, well, tough, because this dude may change our program. I know it's not that simple. That's like an extreme example, obviously. But we've gotten to this point, and we talked about this last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, where you're really going to have to start investing in the character, even more so, I think, than maybe you did in previous eras, of the guys you're involving in your program. And not just like character, like, hey, will you go to class? Will you say yes, ma'am, and open the door? Will you just not be a creep? It's character like, hey, you've got to understand where you fit in, and you have got to be content with whatever you're able to generate. And if you want more, then generate more. But I don't know that I anticipated so quickly, maybe a spinning back around to thinking, I don't know, is it causing more problems than it is, say, like resulting in an advantage or what? But that's part of this takeover here, leadership change, that I'm so fascinated with, Chris, because there's no assumption everybody's just going to do it the same. And we're feeling like, yeah, he's going to be pro NIL, or has to be involved in that to compete. But I'm ready to get maybe a better feel of how they will pursue things in that direction, or not pursue things in that direction. And I don't begrudge Fardaw Zamak or anybody else who wants to be unapologetic about this is what I'm doing. I don't begrudge them at all. But a coach better be very, very judicious in the way that obviously some of this is being pursued. Goes without saying, I guess.
You're right in that men's basketball is semi one-off. I think it's spilling over into football quite a bit as well, but not near like basketball. Just because I think you nailed it. You can get one guy, Nigel Pack, for example, and you can go pay him $800,000, and you can end up in the Final Four. I'm not saying that that's exactly why they got to the Final Four, but I don't know if they get to the Final Four without Nigel Pack. And that was a dollar figure that was very public, and all those things. He coming from Kansas State and went to the University of Miami. I think that Grant wants kids to come here because they want to be here, and then the NIL stuff can be figured out after the fact. You follow me? Yeah. Like, in other words, you're not coming here because you've been offered this dollar amount. It's like, hey, this is where I want to go, man. I want to play here. I want to be in front of these fans. I want to be in this building and practice in the Womble and play your style of defense and all those things. And we'll worry about NIL afterward. There's an order to it. And I think that maybe last summer the order was opposite. It was,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's kind of like employment, right? It's, you want to go somewhere that you think you're going to be able to make a lot of money. Obviously, that's what we're here for. But that also doesn't have to be the primary attraction day one. I think you also think about, like, can I grow into making this, or is this going to improve my? Right. So a kid will have to consider that, and that may be a diamond in the rough to find. I don't know. Maybe they're not that way, but
I'll be surprised. Like, but I'll be surprised too if they don't do something. So this wasn't done with men's basketball. It was done with football. It was done with the Lady Raiders. But I'll be surprised if they don't kind of come up with something that is just like, hey, here's what everybody gets when you play here. And it doesn't mean you can't go get something off to the side or something extra or anything like that, But I think that, that is something that's why I say maybe even it out a bit, because there were some guys on this team last year getting a ton of money, and there was others not getting any. And and again, this is what the market dictated. They were able to get it, and it's somebody's fault. It's just, but I think that they would like to, they being, Grant and Texas Tech and the folks that are kind of in charge of NIL and Lubbock and Fort Tech with the collectives and things like that. I think they would prefer a little more evened out process. But we'll see what we get. But that does absolutely factor in. It's not everything, but it does factor into kind of who's back, who's not. You know, what are you demanding? Are you wanting to be here just because of that, or are you wanting to be here because you like wearing red and black and all those things? So I think
we're gonna start having holdouts, contract disputes.
Well, yeah, and that won't exist either because they'll just get in the portal. Or you just wish somebody, hey man, if you feel like you can get a certain amount of money, we wish you good luck. And if your mind changes and maybe we still have a spot, come back and talk to us. It depends on who it is, obviously, but because I really believe, like, I don't think the Robert Jenningses and the Lamar Washingtons and people like that, I don't think they were really involved in this stuff. And I think they were just here because this is where they wanted to be. And I think that given the choice, they may want to stay here, but it has to make sense for them and basketball wise and personal wise and all that stuff. So,
it just hit me. There is a roughly 6-figure education also available.
Well, yeah,
we think like, well, the guys that aren't getting nothing, boy, they're just here dragging along. Or once upon a time, it's like, no, that is what you get. You get a scholarship and a chance to come to college for free in exchange for athletic talent. I shouldn't say for free. But
and Florida Atlantic, and some of the, I don't know what UConn's situation is. We know what Miami's was, but I mean, there's ways to win doing it all different kinds of ways. You don't have to be a heavy player in this stuff to try to win. I mean, that's been proven. You need culture, you need discipline, you need talent, you need, playing hard. I mean, all those kinds of things. So I think some guys have gotten some revenue off to the side. Some guys have not. And it doesn't mean, so you just don't know what their intentions or wants are going forward here now that the coaching staff has changed. So
it's that word, the first one you mentioned, culture. You got to have it. Yeah. And that is also going to involve a guy who's being recruited, getting some feel of the potential of name, image, and likeness monetization. I don't think you want to show up and hear the head coach crapping on it, and acting like that's not the way we do it. But that just needs to be one spoke in the wheel of what your culture is, and hopefully a winning one. Chris, before we move on from hoops, we're going to get to Tech football, and we're going to get to what turns the wheel for any football team, that being an offensive line. We'll hear from offensive line coach Stephen Hamby coming up in just a moment. But I was curious on the assistant front. The two additions that we've learned of so far were the two that we talked about last week, the guys that are coming over from North Texas with Coach McCaslin. But the pursuit otherwise of some of the names that you and I talked about over the last few weeks, guys like McCollum or whoever it might be that's on your mind, have we had plans change? Have we had offers rejected? Have we had – what type of evolution, I guess, are you aware of with the remainder of trying to fill out a staff?
I think it's all – I think as Grant has sat back and been on the job for a few days, I think trying to put the right pieces in place, kind of trying to figure out, and a lot of this has been just sitting and listening to players and to parents, to whoever, and trying to determine kind of what he needs. I do think he needs Coach Brower and Coach AC are younger. I think Coach Brower very well respected, but these guys are not long time, 20+ year assistants, things like that. So I think that's why, you saw some of those names mentioned, several weeks ago with some experience. And I think that is something that I wouldn't be surprised if Coach McCaslin adds to the mix here. And, I think his strength coach is going to come from North Texas. He's a fairly young guy, very well respected as well. But I mean, there's a variety of you can always, rearrange, titles and things like that once you kind of get the group together and kind of maximize skill sets based on, who you're able to get, what you feel like you need. And so I think this is going to be, and people may roll their eyes when they hear this, but this may play out into, I don't know if the coaching part per se, but like all the pieces could still be somewhat up in the air from 1 to say 30 or 35, depending on how many graduate assistants and student managers and video coordinators and how far you go down the deal. This could play out into like May or June, which is typically, kind of how some of that stuff, does. I mean, it's just like I will say that about 2 months from, or a little less than 2 months from right now, whenever you report for the first session of summer school and you can actually start working with your team, that's a good deadline for your roster and for staff and all that. Not that it's locked or anything and things change, but that's a good soft deadline, I would say, for a lot of this to be put to bed. But that's what, June. I'd have to go look up the Texas Tech academic calendar to find out when June 1 starts. But, these guys aren't going to show up. Players and everything won't show up until late May, early June. But that's when you can start practicing and you can start doing things on the court as a staff and start, and so some of this stuff may play out until then. But I just know this: you can kind of, move your pieces around as you see fit, depending on what you add or what you feel like you need. And, again, there's just so many, I think, people involved in a basketball program or athletic program in general at this level that you just don't realize. You have player development, you have video coordinator, you have, like the operations type folks, you have graduate assistants that are guys that are wanting to be coaches at some point. And then you have student managers, you have assistant coaches, you have personal assistants. I mean, on and on. So there's a long list of people and roles that still need to be filled, and that may take a bit.
Is the video coordinator the guy that drives up to Kittiquay to meet the guys from Oklahoma State and they exchange VHSs, something like that?
And that position is rather stressful. George Nielsen was that guy last year. The two under Beard and I guess the two under Beard were Max and Elliott. They both went off to the NBA for the Timberwolves and the Pistons. This is the guy or department that is getting all the game film that you would need to use to scout. They are chopping up your game as soon as it ends, and they get it to all coaches' laptops and everything like that, so they can immediately scout. Because when you're in the machine, you're rolling quickly. It's like we only have 2 days to prepare. But then the stressful part is you're the guy that you may go look at a player in the portal and go, hey man, go find me the guy's every 3-point shot that he took. Go find me, cut up every assist that he's got. And it's a lot, and then they want it quickly.
I'm imagining these guys just being fried, coming out looking like Doc Brown from Back to the
Future. They're mostly basketball people, but they can work a MacBook and work the program called Synergy and play it like a guitar. Really, I mean it's actually it's actually fascinating. I mean, and they are worth their weight in gold if you have a good one. I mean, I know Max and Elliott and George have all been phenomenal. Because they know, that they're helping prepare for the current game, the look-ahead game. They're involved in recruiting, but they're just. But it's a fascinating job position, but it's hard and it's stressful for sure.
There you go. If you're a basketball guy out there, maybe don't want to be a coach, but you can play a MacBook like a guitar, per Chris Level. Video coordinator could be in your future. Keep it in mind. All right, before we are out of here, we're heading over to Joey McGuire's spring camp as we're going to hear from offensive line coach Stephen Hamby, and we'll talk trenches. Specifically, I think one of the more interesting positional changes on either side of the ball, any phase of the game for the entire roster is playing out within Coach Hamby's group, and we'll get some thoughts on that. Coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. NBA postseason on your mind? Now's the perfect time to get in as a new customer with FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app today, and you're going to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet don't bank. You feel me? Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, it's super easy to use. And then you can bet on anything and everything. Money line, point scores, how many fans LeBron gets kicked out in the first quarter, whatever you want, they got it. Plus, FanDuel is even going to let you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout. Smoking on that same game parlay pack, my man, only with FanDuel. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets today when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Glad to have you along for the ride on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network with Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks for joining us on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't so far so you never miss an episode. We're leaving hoops behind, talking trenches to wrap up today's episode, Chris, as spring camp is rolling on. And one of the more intriguing aspects of this camp clearly playing out along the offensive line under Stephen Hamby. I think what we saw last year offensively, as we've talked about in a couple of different ways since spring camp has began, was admirable at the end of the year, but mostly because of the obstacles you were having to overcome. The fact that you were able to come up with a mostly successful season, beating opponents your fans care about, and getting a bowl win over an SEC team, winning games late in the season to finish the year. These are all things that you got to call successful. But the fact that you were able to do it with injury along the offensive line, injury to your quarterbacks. I mean, we're talking some injuries, if we're talking O-line, that played out before the season even began, that derailed plan A. So as we head into year two, you're really hoping with that group, you just have some better luck, I think, first and foremost, but that also you'll see some big-time progress. Well, in the effort or in the name of progress, one of the things that is happening has been a switch with your bookends here. Your tackles now going to be swapped as far as what you're expecting to see week one. Things can still change, but Caleb Rogers from left to right, Monroe Mills from right to left. And want to get some thoughts from you, Chris, on how this is playing out and also how we arrived here. But first, let's take a listen to offensive line coach Stephen Hamby talking about that swap so far.
Pretty comfortable, honestly. In my opinion, Caleb looks really good over there, right? Monroe, he's already played left before, so it's easy for him to make that switch back. But, I mean, he's gotten really strong. Caleb's trying to get a lot stronger, too. So the offseason was a really, really big deal for us at the tackle position.
I think in like whether you run a company or whether you're a coach or whatever, I mean, one of the biggest things that you have to do is, or you're tasked with is, and you've got players or a set of employees, whatever, put people in a position to where they can succeed. And sometimes you have to put people in a position where, okay, this doesn't really fit, but man, the company needs this and it's not the best for the person. But I think in this case, you know, this is the best thing for each player to have switched because I don't know if you were maybe asking Caleb Rogers too much to play left tackle. And I think he struggled with that at times. I think he did the best he could. But I think, you know, they even tried Caleb Rogers at center during bowl prep just to kind of see, you know, move some things around and just kind of see what would be best because they knew that Dennis Wilburn moving to guard would maybe be best for Dennis Wilburn and all those things. But
Chris,
I think –
can I ask you something real quickly about Caleb there in that instance? It seems like even though there's been some disappointment, they want this guy to factor in somewhere because it's not a situation where it's just like, all right, he's struggling, next guy up, and maybe we'll get back to you. But what is there to that? Because it seems like they really want him somewhere to be involved.
Yeah, he is talented. I think you know, that there's some maturation that needed to take place. I think he played really played a lot early, and I think that, you know, he's being pushed right now, and I think he's having to get better and grow up. And I think this is all good. I think him being around the Wilburns and the Spencers and the Stats, these kinds of older players, this has been good for him. And I think, you know, Monroe Mills is somebody that is more of a natural left tackle. Look, typically when you're a left tackle, odds are more often than not you're going to see the best pass rusher opposite of you, you know, with the other team. And that's why left tackles in the NFL, it's one of the premium positions in the league, and it's paid extremely well if you find the right one. Protects the quarterback's blind side, and all those things. But that's where, you know, that's where they typically line up, you know, your best pass rushers and things like that. But I think Caleb Rogers absolutely factors in. And I say disappointment. It's not. I just don't know if that was his natural spot. He was just a bit overwhelmed at times, I think, at left tackle. Caleb's very animated. He talks a lot. He's very, you never have to worry about, you know, sometimes he needs to focus and hone that in a bit. But I think he plays hard. He's a good kid. But I just think that this will do worlds for him, moving him from left over to right and then moving Monroe. But they just didn't want to do it in the middle of last year without practicing it. And I think that they thought about some of this stuff in bowl prep with a lot of time to work, but they just didn't. That comes with a lot. You start moving pieces around. Yeah. It's like, we haven't played a game like this yet this year. Let's just kind of keep it like it was. We got a good look at it in practices, and I think that was probably wise. But now they can make that change, and they get a full off season to kind of adjust to that. But we've talked a lot about Caleb, but this is a lot to do with Monroe Mills too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Monroe is more of a natural left tackle. This is what he's played before. He's got some longer arms, I think, and a bit taller and just more range right there. So, and he was a heck of a find from the portal last year, to get him here. And then the backup there, and I wouldn't just totally rule him out of nudging his way into one of these two spots, is Ty Buchanan. I think he's done really, really good. So it's just nice to have some answers. Because I think Hamby will tell you, look, we kind of know our 5 right now. And if it's not those 5, we know who the 6th or the 7th guy may be, but it's really 8, 9, 10 that you're really trying to, identify, if you will. And I think that's Landon Peterson, who's hurt. That's Matt Keeler, who's kind of changing his body, and he's right now the backup left tackle. So that's what this spring is really about, is that 8, 9, and 10, more so than the switch at tackle. But I think your point still stands, and that was a big move for both of those guys. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of just scary outright. And I guess, seeing some of the scary things from a quarterback perspective that were coming off that left side, this isn't as scary. And hopefully in the name, again, of progress, you figure some things out. But we were talking about this heading into bowl practice season, which is college football's most treasured time of year. Let's all wait 3 weeks before the most important game. And you were saying, hey, they may swap some things up here. And I was like, huh? Mm-hmm. Or before, we get down there with Ole Miss, we're going to swap up tackles. And it turned out, of course, just to be, hey, we're using this time to experiment and see what we think maybe about the future, about spring camp and big picture. So we didn't see it play out so dramatically, obviously, as the game, but as it could have in the game, I guess I should say. But, man, when you're talking about your tackles, you're talking about probably 2 of the 5 or 10 most important positions on your entire team. Specifically, left tackle, I'd say, is one of the top 5 most important positions on your team. But it's a little scary, but you're trying to get better. So I hope that's going to be the result of that. Can you tell me where I'm right or wrong? Not participating in the spring, but just your 5 left to right. We're talking Mills, Wilburn, Stats. Yeah, left to right. It's Mills. It's actually Spencer, then Stats, then Wilburn, and then Rogers. And I think Jacoby Jackson is the guy pushing both guards right now. And I think Ty Buchanan is pushing both tackles right now. Gotcha. I would say that your backup center is still technically Dennis Wilburn. I think if something were to ever happen to Stats, I think you would still put Wilburn in there at center, compared to whoever is working at backup center right now. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then you would just put Jacoby Jackson in at guard, move Wilburn to center. I think Sheridan Wilson was working out at backup center at times. I think he kind of dinged up his hand in practice a couple of weeks ago. And then I think, Coach Hamby really talked a lot about Daniel Sill and then Caden Carr, both of the mid-year guys that are true freshmen that are both just enormous individuals that they're just in the process of trying to grow up and drinking from a fire hose and all that, getting it all figured out. But, I mean, your offensive line is the best it's been as a group in a while. And the bar, to be honest with you, has been relatively low just because you've had – injuries or inexperience or whatever it may be, and you've got to try to address some of this between now and a year from now, because as much as we love Spencer, Stats, and Wilburn, they're all gone after this season, and so that's a lot to replace. So that's why the Jacoby Jacksons and the Buchanans and the Landon Petersons and the Sheridan Wilsons and the Carrs and the Sills and on it goes. That's why it's crucial time for them right now this spring and will be this August and all those kinds of things, because at some point, that middle three is going to depart.
Sounds like we better be doing some eating in the A gap. I think coming up I really am excited about the interior. I hope I'm not getting too quick to get that way about Spencer, given the fact that I don't know what to expect, but I know that was obviously a big blow. But wherever Wilburn is, I'll just go ahead and run right behind his left or right hip, whatever you want me to do, boss. But I'm excited about the interior's chances first, Chris, and then I kind of feel like if you can get these tackles cooking, then maybe you're going to be better than I anticipate. But given what Wilburn did a season ago and what we hear about stats, and also, I mean, contributing to the stats conversation at center is obviously his familiarity with Zach Kittley. Coach Hamby spoke on that also, talking about progress and maturity being there in year number 2, just as a result of being more comfortable with what they're trying to do offensively. So, man, I'm excited about the potential with this group. I think this is probably about as hopeful as I've been with an offensive line in a decade. I really don't know when I felt like you had a group that I thought could come up with something. There have been some seasons where like, yeah, you got somebody that's supposed to be pretty good here, somebody that's got NFL prospect here, but I don't know. And maybe it's just too much optimism because I'm still riding high, considering the fact that you're on a winning streak. You have not been beaten. The winning streak is still alive. But I'm excited about the group, man. What do you see there? Because obviously you're following this as closely as anyone every year. The collection versus maybe some individuals of years gone by. Do you think you have a chance at maybe being a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I like the group. I can tell they like the group. I just think that depth is still a problem, and I think that's where I think they're trying to create or figure that part out. I think that you go. Truth be told, right now, I bet they would tell you we go 7 deep. We are comfortable and very comfortable with playing 7 different guys right now, but as we saw last year, I mean, there's things that get, they can hammer you. And if you don't have some of that depth identified, you don't want to have to tap into it, but this is the sport. And so that's the scary part for you is that I think your frontline guys are capable. I don't know if you have all world tackles. I don't know if Caleb and Monroe are like, all conference type guys yet anyway. I think the middle 3 are very, very good. But I think the depth is if you were putting a question mark on that group, it's like, okay, do we have proven depth that we won't miss a beat on? That's what they're trying to develop right now. But yeah, well, the group is good. It should be a big reason why, that they succeed this year. Nowhere
to go but up. I know we're all fans of Coach Hamby because of what he was as a Red Raider, hoping for good things, obviously, as a positional coach as well. But that has been about as beleaguered of a group over the last decade and a third or so, I think, as there has been on the team. And obviously that's why you've had some of the seasons that you've had, because you hadn't competed real well in the trenches, or certainly not as consistently as you like. Thought they competed a season ago, not to say it was good or pretty all that often, but I thought they competed. And hopefully that's going to be the case in year 2 under Coach Kittley and Coach Hamby. And maybe just a little bit better luck from a health standpoint. That never hurt anyone, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right, Chris, appreciate all the insight and the perspectives once again today, man. Enjoy the time, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Keep hope alive, people. Have a good week.
You got it. And subscribe on YouTube if you haven't so far, so you never miss an episode. We're on the push to 3,000. Can't believe it. I mean, we're just boys once upon a time shooting for 4 digits, and now look at us topping 2,800 and cruising on to 3 bills. So,
and it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost you a thing. No. Just hit that button, and we would certainly appreciate it. Management Absolutely. Is after us to get to 3,000 as quickly as we can. Otherwise, they say, "Hey guys, we may have to do away with you."
And finally, the commemorative keychain. I did confirm 3,000 subscribers from the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay. So just still running around with loose keys in the pockets. I need that keychain. Subscribe on YouTube, please, and thank you. Tell your friends, tell your enemies as well. All right, for Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. We'll see you on the other side. for another round of Locked On Texas Tech.